Welcome to Face to Face. This is a show about change and what's next. It's a show that asks questions and peels back the layers of our average everyday experience and goes beyond scratching the surface. We interview people doing incredible things who are making a difference around the globe. Join me as we listen in and get one step closer to understanding that big ideas shared create collaboration. Collaboration can inspire community, and communities create social change. I'm David Peck, and this is Face to Face. So my interview today is with two entrepreneurs, two small business owners here in Mississauga, Ontario, Rudnik and Cheryl Hopkins. And I think you're going to enjoy this interview for a whole lot of reasons. This is about change, but it's about change of a particular sort. They've got a company that has taken an age-old sport, fishing, with some age-old kind of traditional approaches to how to fish, and have kind of turned it on its head in a little bit. I think you're going to enjoy the interview for a variety of reasons. There are entrepreneurial insights here, there are small business insights, and we have a lot of fun as well. So check it out. This is Rudnik and Cheryl Hopkins with Baitcloud. That's baitcloud.com. Check them out online and stay tuned. Well, welcome to Face to Face. We are joined today by a couple of special guests, Carl and Cheryl. I'm just going to introduce them as that right now. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
So we're at a space in, I guess it's right on the border of Oakville and Mississauga, Ontario. Maybe it's Mississauga, at a company called Baitcloud. Check them out on the website, baitcloud.com. And we're going to talk about the product, but I think we're going to really talk more about the thinking behind the product. Or at least that's what's interesting me from a philosophical perspective, I guess you could say, but also from an entrepreneurial perspective. How did you get to a certain place is a question I think I like to ask a lot of times. So Carl, so I'm sitting here and I'm kind of looking out behind you at your manufacturing here, and so just so everyone out there, if you haven't actually been able to get to the website in the last 32 and a half seconds, basically what we're talking about here is a fish-attractant that looks like a bath bomb. So think Lush, think those like sort of granular-like balls that you would throw into the bathtub, but you probably don't want to toss one of these in your bathtub. Tell me about the product first, Carl.
Right.
What is it exactly?
Yeah, it's a fish-attractant ball. You could toss one in your bathtub. It wouldn't do any harm, but it wouldn't smell like a bath that you'd want to sit in.
What's it going to do for your skin, I guess, is the question I have.
Yeah, you probably come out smelling like a fish. But no, essentially what it is a ball that is about the size of a golf ball. Mm-hmm. The idea behind it is you throw it in the water in the area you're fishing. So whether that's off of a boat, off of a pier or a dock, or on the ice, you throw this ball in the water. They're heavy and dense, so they sink like a stone. But the second that it touches the water, essentially what's going to happen is it'll start fizzing and creating a scent cloud, as well as a visual and physical disturbance in the water. So the bubbles, it fizzes so vigorously that the bubbles create the sound and scent of a school of bait fish feeding in that area. If you think of Shark Week, when they chum in the water and you see bait fish splashing on the surface, essentially that disturbance tells any other bait fish in the area that there is something in that location for them to eat. That also triggers predatory fish in the area to come in and check out basically the bait fish that are feeding in that area. So any fish within about 100-foot radius of where you drop this ball will be drawn into that location. So
obviously fishermen and women have been using bait for years, fish-attractant of various sorts. I've heard of things like you drop you go to I remember going to a, what would you call it, a fish farm, not a fish farm, but a fish pond, I guess.
Yeah, like a stock pond.
Thank you, stock pond.
Yep.
At Stouffville, I think, Ontario, years ago. And holy cow, you'd catch fish in like seconds, right? But I seem to remember these little pellets that would be on the hook, and then you'd toss a bunch into the water, kind of like a fish-attractant, I suppose.
Right. So the interesting thing about, say, like a stock pond is that if you go to a stock pond with a worm or a minnow and try to catch a fish, you won't have any luck, because those fish are born and raised in that pond, all they know is food pellets. So it's completely artificial environment. Whereas out in the open water on a lake like Lake Simcoe or Lake Ontario, those fish are used to eating small bait fish. So that's essentially what this will mimic. I wouldn't use this product in an environment like that, an artificially created environment. But there are similar products out there in terms of chumming. So chumming it's an age-old practice. Guys have been doing it for hundreds of years. But essentially what that is using the remnants of dead fish,
right,
where you would drop the fish down into the water or behind the boat if you're trolling, or the guys use small pails to drop them to the bottom of the lake. Essentially what happens is other fish will come in to check that out. Now, the difference between doing that and using a product like Baitcloud is that there's no actual fish parts in Baitcloud. So a huge issue right now in Ontario is invasive species entering our waterways.
Right.
This has no effect whatsoever on that because there's nothing that was ever alive in the Baitcloud ball. So there is a risk of dumping the contents of a minnow pail or a different type of bait fish species, that there might be one in that chum that you thought was dead that isn't dead, and now that has entered the waterway. The Asian carp is a huge problem right now in Lake Ontario, and invasive species have been entering Ontario waterways for a long time. So that is an issue you don't have to worry about at all with Baitcloud.
How do the fish sort of, in a sense, so chumming is, I don't know, throwing lots of bread in, or bananas like we were talking about earlier, which is apparently quite the no-no. But like throwing in little bits of bread, let's say, and then tossing a hook in, that would be considered chumming.
Right. I mean, that would be considered chumming as well. Again, fish's instinct tells it that bread is a foreign object. I mean, in a koi pond somewhere that's an artificial environment, they're used to doing
at the Mandarin.
I was thinking the exact same thing I was just thinking the same thing at the Mandarin.
Yeah.
Those ones probably even eat pennies for all I know. But no. So that would be considered chumming as well. And a lot of people are pro or against chumming.
Yeah, so I want to talk about the ethics of that. I mean, you say it's been done for hundreds of years. How do the fish stand a chance? You know, I know a friend of mine who's come from the deep south, Mississippi, hunter, and I've heard some of the stuff that hunters do. I don't hunt, but you know, the way they'll set up an area to try to attract deer, and they put out food. And I mean, it kind of makes sense, I suppose, right? It's the whole idea of setting a trap, really, isn't it?
I mean, you can look at it like that. I think one major difference is that both Cheryl and I designed this product to work effectively to bring fish to our area, but from the get-go, and since I started fishing at the age of 2 years old, I have practiced catch and release. So it's all about the sport of fishing for Cheryl and I. It's not about bringing as many fish to our area as possible, then dropping a net down and scooping them all up and basically harvesting fish. Yes, the product does make fishing easier in a sense that fish will be attracted to the area you're fishing in. There's still a lot of technique that's involved in fishing. There's still a lot of patience, and when you're catching a fish that is in season, and you know you're targeting a fish that is in season, meaning that it's not currently spawning or about to spawn, then really it's been proven that there's no harm in relocating a fish. I mean, there's thousands of bass tournaments that happen across North America every year, and relocating a fish from the middle of the lake and then releasing it at the dock after you weigh it has proven that there's
it's not about killing the fish. It's about catching them. I mean, having fished a fair bit, I guess, over the years, and certainly no expert by any means. I mean, there is a lot of technique. I mean, isn't fishing to some degree about the accessories?
You know what? It's been said. It's been said a lot.
The bigger the toolbox, the better, or the bigger the tackle box, the better. Or?
Yeah, and I mean, there's a reason that $100,000 bass boats have sparkly paint on them, and they look great flying down the lake at 70 kilometers an hour. And it's been said that a lot of fish lures are designed not to catch fish, but to catch fishermen.
Right.
And it's a lot about that as well. It's a pastime. It's a hobby. It's a passion. It's a lot of things to a lot of people. But to Cheryl and I, and to our beliefs, and to the audience that we're targeting and speaking to, and the community that we're a part of as business owners now, believe very strongly in catch and release.
So what I find, so we, at Couchiching, that's where we met, Lake Couchiching up in Orillia, and you guys were at a part of a festival, and a couple weeks before that I'd seen the big fisher guy in Canada, which I'm sure he's thrilled about that I don't remember his name right now, Bob Azuma. Right?
Yep, Bob Azumi, yeah.
Azumi. There you go. Even more thrilled that I can't pronounce his name.
I'm sure he
but
doesn't mind.
I've watched him fish. It's fun. It's cool. He was there. My son and I watched him weigh these fish, all catch and release, right? The boat was there, and they were dumping them back into what looked like a big cooler, and then they go out to the middle of the lake and let them all go. I couldn't believe the fish that were coming out of this lake. And so my son and I had been fishing the day before, and we'd caught quite a few perch, actually, on little maps lures. Trawling on a farther part of the lake, and you go, okay, so we can actually fish, we actually catch something, but these guys are pulling fish out of there that I've never seen before in my life, never mind at Couchiching. So you go, clearly it's a bit about equipment, it's a lot about probably technique, and there's a fair bit of luck, but these guys are kind of proving to me it's not just luck, there's some other things going on as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds. There's multiple different varieties of sonar equipment. There's a lot of different tackle that isn't necessarily available to consumers because these professional anglers are sponsored by tackle distributors and companies.
Yeah, I would even say understanding fish behavior, like going out fishing with Carl, not having a lot of experience, myself. He understands the spots, what to look for, understanding the species, where, time of year, what their behaviors are. So he'll know that they're, deep now or, or
temperature, shading, the sun, and this
Exactly.
is why you get stuff like you gotta fish in the morning and in the evening.
Right. I mean, and things like structure, things like depth, time of year, weather, believe it or not, moon phase, everything contributes to where those fish will be sitting, and whether or not those fish are going to be hitting what you're putting in front of them.
Which is precisely why you designed this tool, this Baitcloud. So tell me about that. So you've been fishing since you were 2. So what did you get into the tub one night and throw a bath bomb in and go, wow,
No,
I've got an idea. Eureka.
I did that.
That's actually putting the cart before the horse. Actually, what happened was, like you said, I had been fishing for years, last 25 years, during the spring, summer, and fall. And I was aware of ice fishing, but I had never tried it. And then a couple of years back, the winter was just too long. We had a couple really cold, really long winters, and I had cabin fever and decided, you know what, even though I don't love the cold, I'm going to brave the elements and head on the ice and try my hand at ice fishing. And I was very unsuccessful the first 2 years that I went out. There's a lot of different techniques that I hadn't ever used before. A lot of different behavior patterns that I needed to understand and be aware of in order to catch fish. So basically, what happened was I was out my dad and I took a drive up to Halliburton, and it was snowing heavily all night and all morning. We arrived at the lake, and there's probably about 2 feet of powder snow on the ice, and we don't have a snowmobile, so we trudged out on the ice, shoveled up our area where we wanted to fish, drilled a couple holes, set up our tent, and hunkered down for a couple hours. And we actually have a sonar that we use on the ice, which a lot of fishermen do, and we didn't mark a single fish under the ice. We didn't catch a single fish. We had no bites, and my dad asked me if I wanted to go look for another spot that might be a bit better. And I always say that sort of Baitcloud was half born out of laziness, because I had a light bulb moment, and I said, well, there's got to be something other than chumming that I can do to attract fish to this area. There's got to be a slow release bait that I can drop down, or why isn't there a chum ball that's coated so that it'll reach the bottom before it releases on the surface, because essentially the fish could be suspended or sitting on the bottom. A lot of times ice fishing, they're hugging the bottom. So then my dad and I chatted about it for a little bit. Didn't think anything of it really until later that week. I was chatting with a friend about my ice fishing experience, and no, I didn't catch anything, and it was frustrating when Cheryl actually had chimed in, overheard my conversation and chimed in and said, well, you know what would work well maybe would be like a bath bomb. You guys ever heard of a bath bomb? So first of all, I had to ask who Cheryl was and introduce myself. And then basically what happened was we chatted a little bit. We ended up grabbing a coffee and
So you guys hadn't met?
No, it's
You overheard a conversation. So
Yeah.
basically, the business is based on laziness and eavesdropping. Excellent.
Exactly.
yeah.
This is the sure sign of an entrepreneur.
Right,
In
exactly.
the making.
Yeah, it's the recipe for success so far. So we sat down, we grabbed a coffee. Cheryl mentioned a bath bomb probably wouldn't be too hard to make. Just instead of maybe lavender oil, you try some sort of oil that a fish would be attracted to, and then I basically explained, having obviously a bit more expertise in the fishing area, different scents that fish might be attracted to. Basically, what happened was we took a quick trip to Bulk Barn, picked up some raw ingredients, and I basically mixed them up and made some prototypes. Took them out onto the ice, tried them out, and had the most success I'd ever had ice fishing, and right off the bat as well. And that was sort of the...
Sent me pictures immediately saying, we're marking fish, and within 3 minutes they had their first fish on the hook. So it was pretty exciting. Also, from my point of view, after that coffee, I went back and I spoke to my husband, and who's a business consultant, and he, was looking at the business model and said, "You have got to do this." So he kind of was very encouraging to, he's an entrepreneur himself, and is fully behind this idea, and really encouraged us to start this business.
So honestly, I mean, it's a bit of a joke, but I love the fact that, you overheard a conversation. You're kind of going, there's got to be a better way, right?
Right.
Not satisfied with the status quo, I guess,
Yep.
of your experience as an ice fisherman.
Right.
It would drive most people crazy, right?
Yep.
Holy smokes, set up the tent, we come out, we don't have a snowmobile, what a pain in the neck,
Right.
and we still don't catch anything.
Right.
Right? So instead of going, I'm done, I guess that's the kind of stuff that really interests me about small business development, about social change. At what point does somebody say, Rosa Parks said, I'm going to sit at the back of the bus in the Deep South at one point, right? At what point do you go, okay, I've had enough, and I've got to do something about it, or maybe find something else that works in a different way? Why? Tell me about that. Tell me about that kind of inkling. What was it? Was it a dissatisfaction, I guess you could say?
Yeah, and I mean, I like to think of myself sort of as a serial inventor, and have been for
Nice.
for as long as I can remember. And
First invention?
is the first invention that something actually came of, and that I was actually able to produce a prototype and test it and do anything with. A lot of the ideas I've had, either
You mean the Baitcloud?
right.
Is the first one that you've actually sort of seen through to?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but I want to know what your first invention was. Was it out of
Oh.
Lego or
You know what?
Toothpicks?
Oh my God.
You know what I
A bit of
use?
gum, a few
Every day
cornflakes,
something
and a
new.
paperclip. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's not even a joke. Honestly, when I was just a little guy, I used to pull apart. I wanted to know how everything worked, basically. So I could never keep a Walkman too long, because within a couple of weeks I'd have it apart in pieces on.
Did you ever get it back together? I
Never,
guess
no,
it's-
not once,
Something different.
not once. And but I would take.
So you're like the ideas guy,
Right,
basically.
right.
is what
So
you're
I
saying.
would-
He didn't have me back then.
Yeah. There
you
Otherwise,
go.
I would have
Yes,
figured out
yes.
somehow
But-
to make it work.
Yeah, so I would always take this, and I would see this, and I would say, how can these two things work together to make something new? And I mean, as a 10-year-old kid, I didn't get very far ever, but I do believe that that thinking carried on.
Well, there was clearly a curiosity there, right?
Definitely, and that thinking carried on right until this point, right until this day. I mean, a lot of the ideas I've had, again, or just, I think, center around, there's got to be a better way to do this that would save people time and energy. And that sounds a lot nicer than saying laziness, but essentially, like you said, I've always thought there's got to be a better way to do this. Why are we still doing it this way?
And would you say at that? I mean, if you had been fishing for that long, you knew about chumming.
Right.
You knew about bait. Really,
Yeah.
some lures are better than others, right?
No, exactly. There's different lures for every situation, every species, and yeah, I mean, this was sort of like I want to be successful at ice fishing, and I want other people to be successful as well. And basically from that point on, I was considering it, but I have to say that the bath bomb idea, or the effervescent property of Baitcloud, is unexpectedly the biggest attractant and the biggest and most effective feature of the product, and that was Cheryl's contribution to it, and without sort of my background knowledge and Cheryl's out of the box thinking, I don't think Baitcloud would be what it is today. I know it wouldn't be what it is today.
So it's kind of like the Alka-Seltzer of bait.
Essentially, and I mean, it's guys actually use chunks of Alka-Seltzer. They'll insert them into their plastic baits when they're fishing. And they've been doing that for years, for probably 50 years. They've been doing that. So the proof of concept was there before we even started, before we had a prototype. And then essentially, when I went on the ice with our first prototypes, that was the moment when I said, okay, this is something that should be pursued. And like Cheryl said too, after consulting with her husband, who's an entrepreneur himself, and the confirmation that not only was it a good idea, but the market could use something like this. I think that was really the go-ahead moment for us.
So Cheryl, are you the brains behind this organization?
I don't know if they can say that. You know what? I think that I believed in Carl's idea, and I have access to brains. So, I mean, I think I have good instincts, but I really, rely on the people that I know and
and I think a lot of the qualities that help out on a day-to-day basis and that help us run this business that I don't possess, Cheryl does, and vice versa. I think we complement each other's skill set very well.
So what I want to know is, and I think this is a really important insight, so what I've heard is, encouragement, affirmation. We haven't talked about investment yet, from a financial perspective, but, we're not going to maybe come up with a 10 points on what makes a great entrepreneurship or a great new startup or a great new business. But, I mean, you guys don't really have a very good sign. Right? I mean,
right.
You could use with a better sign. It's about the size of a business card, I think. So
yeah.
maybe we can. But you don't need a good sign, apparently. But you do need encouragement, affirmation. You need some kind of investment. You need a great idea. I'm wondering, do you need the collaborative edge as well? Like, I guess my question is, could you have done this on your own, Carl?
Absolutely not. Not a chance. No, there's no way. I think what it comes down to is that, and I mean, I don't have 10 points to tell you what would make.
Well, this is the thing. This is what's so fascinating, really, about any kind of change, right? Everyone wants to come up with the method. 400,000 businesses apparently fail every year in Canada, or Canada. Anyway, it's a crazy stat, right? So every one of those people want the 10-pager, or the 10-pointer, I should say, the 2-pager with 10 points.
Yeah.
How to do it, but it just doesn't seem to play out that way ever.
No, and I think to that point, a sign would not be on that list for us because essentially because we're not a business that people walk into to buy our product. Basically, it's sales driven, and it's getting the product to the community, educating them about it, because it's a new product. There's nothing like it. That was one of our biggest hurdles is delivering it to people and having them understand what this product does and what the benefit is. So no one would walk into our space here where we are today and buy Baitcloud off the shelf. Essentially, what we've done is we've partnered with independent bait shops across the province right now, and they have Baitcloud on their shelf. A huge part of why we did it that way is that, having grown up fishing and going down to my local bait shop and building a relationship with the shop owner and seeing that they're a small business owner trying to make their way, selling products to guys that are passionate about the industry, but them being passionate about the industry as well. I think that had a huge part, and I think one of the points that would be on that 10-point list would be a passion for creating something that people love. And I think Cheryl and I both share that. Is that we get the most satisfaction when someone will come to us and say, "Wow, what a great idea."
Could it, so, okay, so let's go down that path just for a second, this idea. I want to get back to the whole idea of relationship and collaboration and partnership, because I think that's essential. I know that I personally suffer from it when, I'm kind of a business of one, a consultant of one. I have a team of people that I go to. I have a gender consultant. I have a proposal writer or two. There are leadership people that I can access, but I don't work with them. I don't come to a space every morning. We don't have a coffee before the day begins together. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
And I think that's so important, the camaraderie of it, the rapport that you feel together. Because I don't know, I think it's kind of like that metaphorical whiteboard, right?
Yeah.
Ideas, that's where they come from. But tell me about this passion for creating something. Could I look out here and see a different product right now? Like, in other words, could your business have been, I don't know, shower hooks?
I mean,
So does it have to connect? So does this great entrepreneur have to connect with something they care about deeply? Because clearly you care about fishing.
you know what? I didn't think so. If you had,
okay,
if you had have asked me that a day before Baitcloud started, or
Right.
I would probably tell you that as long as it sells, I'm happy.
Right. Okay,
No,
fair
and,
enough.
and that's
Yeah.
to be honest. And it's funny because I was asked initially, probably after about the first month, how I would feel if a large fish-attractant manufacturer came by, wanted to acquire Baitcloud and change the name. Would that bother me at all? And my initial thought was, well, no, because it's a means to an end. After only 6 months, 7 months, that thinking has completely changed, where this is my baby now, and no, there's no way you're changing the name. And there's no way that you're going to come in and basically essentially flip Baitcloud on its head because of the amount of effort and work
So that's
that
really good. So this is not, I love what you said. Before Baitcloud, I would
Yeah.
have said, as long as it sells. Awesome. Because then now it's no longer just about profit, which kind of, to me, flies in the face of what supposedly entrepreneurship is all about. Supposedly, right? It's about the free market. It's about got to make lots of money so we can purchase X, Y, and Z. So those folks, and it trickles down and all of that economic theory. So this is really, to me, more about passion, actually,
For sure.
and more about passion than purpose, almost, in a sense, right? You're ticked that you had to walk out, set up your tent, you didn't catch any fish that day.
I wasn't
And
happy about it, that's
That
for
was
sure.
like, okay, so you'd had years of that, and then you just went, okay, that's it. I'm going to do something about this. I'm going to make a change. And who knew it was going to be Baitcloud, right? It could have
Right.
been something else related, but you wind up with this product that is starting to move. How is this not illegal? How do fish even stand a chance? You know what I mean? Like, clearly chumming's been going on for years. Legal's the wrong word, maybe, but you know what I mean? Like, it just, sonar, attractants, bait, new kinds of hooks, fishing. Like, how are there any fish left in the ocean or in lakes? It's crazy.
Well, I mean, I guess my first thought initially is that it goes back. The reason that there's fish left in the lakes is because I would say majority of anglers practice catch and release, but
Most fishermen suck. Is that basically what you're saying, Carl?
no. Well, no, but no. I think the fishing lures are called fishing lures because they are designed to attract fish to whatever it is you're using. So a fishing lure that has a hook on it that you're using to catch a fish, that's sort of deceitful in a sense.
Right. Yeah, deceitful's a good word
but
for
it
it.
also has been practiced for centuries, right? It's not something new that we've just created, luring fish to our area.
I think one of the things that's most interesting is that chumming is very widely used in saltwater fishing in the oceans. You almost don't find a boat in the ocean without a fishing boat without chum on it, and it's not very widely used in freshwater scenarios. So in the Great Lakes, in Muskoka, in Halliburton, wherever.
It's a little bit frowned upon, I would think. Even the nice thing about Baitcloud is it's clean. It's environmentally friendly. There's all natural ingredients, and there's nothing that we're polluting or putting in the water. Everything dissolves or is
Right. Yeah, so I mean, some guys as a chum actually use things like macaroni or eggshells and things like that, where to the ministry is actually that's considered littering.
Interesting.
After Baitcloud is completely dissolved after 10 minutes, there is a scent cloud and basically left in the water column until the current sweeps it away, essentially, that will hold fish on your spot, but there's physically nothing left in the environment whatsoever, and there's nothing harmful deposited into the watershed whatsoever. Yeah. So, I mean, the idea of the luring, I mean, we had someone basically compare Baitcloud to luring and hunting Cecil the lion not too long ago.
You're kidding.
No, so
it's a little bit of a stretch, I think.
It's a bit of a stretch, I think.
Stretch,
yeah. So I mean, that was more on the extreme end.
That was our first hater.
Yeah, that was
your
more,
first. Yeah, it's pretty funny. Did you get any ugly social media posts over that?
No, not really.
That was an ugly social media post, but essentially it didn't go further than that, because I think most sane people understand that it has nothing. It's nothing like that whatsoever. But again, I think that thoughts like that come from people who don't understand what fishing is to the people who are diehard fishermen.
Especially from a catch and release perspective. I mean, that's something that I don't think I heard as a kid, really. The idea when I was a kid fishing, which is, a few years ago now, just turned 50 recently, it was what you catch, you keep. We're gonna eat it tonight. I mean, that was the thing, right? And it wasn't because we really needed it. We could have had something, we could have had macaroni that we were using to chum for fish with.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like there were other things. So it wasn't a life and death situation for us, but that was the expectation. You catch it, you keep it.
Right.
And so things have changed.
But as long as you're going to consume it, I don't think there's any harm. I mean, obviously there's, if it was senseless, you were just killing the fish and throwing it back in or leaving it on the shore, I think that would be more of a concern. But maybe Carl can speak more on this. But hunters and anglers, associations all over the world are probably the leaders in like environmental
conservation.
Which is really kind of ironic in a way, isn't it?
Right?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
People don't understand that. They don't realize that those are the people that want, clean shores. We were just fishing, I don't know, the other day down at Port Credit, and they were doing a shoreline cleanup, and there's a lot of community involvement and giving back from.
Yeah, and I think to your point about what you catch, you keep. I think a lot of that had to do with, you could walk into any serious outdoorsman's man cave, if you want to call it that, and see multiple fish mounted on the wall.
Right,
whereas,
the trophies.
And they're trophy fish. The trophy now is being able to post that picture to Facebook on the boat.
Right.
And the guy being able to say, hey everyone, check out what I got. But by the time that picture hits the internet, that fish is already back in the water.
Yeah, which is pretty cool in a sense, and it's what a great sort of lesson to pass on to your kids, and just the whole environmental thing. I mean, that's a whole other thing we could talk about from a social change perspective. Again, I don't know about you guys, but I wasn't raised to compost and to keep aluminum cans away from glass jars and stuff, and you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's now it's a part of the culture. It's in a way that it never was before. So I think these are reasons to be encouraged. Tell me about the business side of things. What are some of the challenges for entrepreneurs? Why do so many businesses fail? I mean, that list is probably like 100 bullet points versus the 10 on how to make it successful. That'd be my guess.
I don't know. Carl's looking at me.
No, I think a lot of first things that come to mind are access to resources, whether that's capital, startup capital. Or having access to the right people to be able to bounce ideas off of. In this case, like as Cheryl said, her and her husband have a strong community that they can sort of bounce ideas and questions and things like that off of. Fortunately, we don't without paying a consultant to necessarily do. So we're fortunate in that sense. I think a passion to want to make it work no matter what isn't always great. I think one of the things that was important was the validation from the fishing community for Cheryl and I, where we knew it was a great idea, or at least we thought it was initially, right? I'm talking right at the beginning. But then basically taking it to market, taking it to a few key influencers in the fishing industry, getting their feedback, having confirmation that this is a great product. This is something that I've never seen before, and I think Cheryl and I have had this conversation. One of the coolest things that we heard and have heard again is why didn't I think of that? And
That's got to be pretty good. You know what? You should have that should be your T-shirt. Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah.
Baitcloud picture. It's a great phrase, and it's got to be pretty validating, I would think.
And you know what? And that was probably the biggest feather in my cap, and still is to this point, is that it's an idea that it's right there. Anyone sort of could have come to the idea, but and then I think the taking the leap is one of the biggest things as well. I mean, so many people have these awesome ideas, but it's not always necessarily that they don't have access to capital, because if you're creative,
it's not just about the cash.
No,
it's
it isn't
just about the cash.
And the resources are out there for people. If you have a great idea and you want to do something about it.
The irony, I think, Carl, is that you said it was kind of born out of laziness. I would almost disagree with you in a sense. I mean, laziness is anything but what an entrepreneur, I think, a quality of an entrepreneur, it seems to me. I mean, maybe that's, you know what I mean? I hear what you're saying about that. Like, you were just so fed up, right? And it's kind of like, oh, this has got to be easier, right?
So actually, to that point, I think you're right in a sense that I wasn't so lazy as to not bother trying to figure out how to fix it.
To wait for somebody else to create
exactly.
it.
Right? And that's the point. And I wasn't just sort of like, this has to be easier. Man, I can't wait till Baitcloud hits the market.
That's right. What's that guy's name again? Bob Azumi?
Yeah.
Is this all you guys think about? And this is a question to the two of you. So as an entrepreneur, is it just all consuming? Has your husband left you yet, Cheryl? Is it, you know?
No, but I sent him a message last night, gone fishing, and he's like, what? And I do. I find myself at the cottage, with the kids and friends, and normally we're, entertaining and, doing other activities. I'm like, hey, who wants to go fishing? And my kids are excited about it. And it's just, obviously they're like, wow, you really have a passion about this. And I don't know. I mean, I've always, I remember fishing with my dad and, going on different trips and family vacations, but it wasn't an everyday, pastime. It was something really special, and I think that's what I like about it, is kind of like the community and the generations and the traditions of fishing. And there's something maybe a little bit romantic, right? Picnics and fishing and throwing the rod in, and it's just I don't know.
I'm not so much for the picnics, but no, and then for me, I mean, I think
like
about
the red and white wine that comes alongside of the picnic.
I know,
yeah,
right?
the heck with the fishing. Yeah.
But I mean, in terms of thinking about it all the time, it's yes, and I think I don't believe that creativity can be forced, but I think over the years I have forced myself to be open-minded, which I believe leads to creativity.
Yeah,
So-
I was just going to say that Carl's always thinking of the next idea. So, he's always like, hey, the next product or this,
Which can drive Cheryl crazy at times.
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, let's just get this
Yeah,
one.
what about that laser focus, which is what somebody said to me in a conversation recently. David, you've got all these wonderful ideas and you got these paths and so on, but what about just focusing on one or two and making that happen?
Steam Whistle has one beer. They, have done it very well, and that's it. Right? And I'm not saying that we have to be the one-trick pony, and there's always something, and but when we're visiting, our bait and tackle shops, they're always like, "What about this?" or, "Could you do this?" And
So I was in Michael's yesterday, the craft store. I can't think of a store that does anything other than laser focus. But their laser focus seems to be appealing to people who want to make things or crafts. I mean, I've never seen so many products. It's worse than Home Depot, and or it's worse than a tackle shop, frankly. There's a lot of accessories at a tackle shop. But Michael's is crazy. Paints and brushes and you name it, you can get it there. No focus at all, and yet it's crafts. So I don't know. It's just I get that kind of comment quite often as well. I'm so we got to wrap this up in a couple minutes. But would you say? And I really want to pursue this creativity thing with you a little bit, but maybe the question is: Are entrepreneurs just problem solvers, really?
I think a large part of entrepreneurs have to do with being problem solvers. But again, I think letting yourself, with the creativity aspect, letting yourself be creative, but understanding when it's you should move on is a huge part as well.
Yeah, boundaries, right? At what point do you say this didn't work, and I guess your investors will help you make those decisions. Your husband, the people that you commiserate
Right.
with will say at some point, or maybe you wake up in the morning and go, yeah, it's time to go down a different path because Baitcloud didn't make the money we thought, or it wasn't scalable in the way we thought, et cetera.
And I think that's interesting too. I mean, I do believe that a majority comes from being problem solvers, but at the same time, I think that it looks very different to a lot of people. Like I said, the problem that I wanted to solve, I wanted to solve it to make mine and other people's lives easier. And initially, before I had the sort of fishing idea, I thought it was more to do with I need to create something that creates wealth for me. And I think that shifted from
Clearly it did.
So I wanted to create something before Baitcloud. I wanted to create something that would solve the problem of me not having the wealth that I desired.
Yeah, just as we wrap up here, I think it's great. I love that notion and insight. But at the same time, are creative people, I mean, I'm trying to be clever here, I suppose, but are creative people entrepreneurs?
Yes.
Or entrepreneurs creative people? What comes first? Or does anything come first? Because you said...
I would say that we're both very creative people. I come from event planning and, throwing parties and just, creativity in the kitchen and, whatever. There's, I collect art. I'm very passionate about creativity. Carl comes from a marketing and advertising background and, again, always thinking outside of the box. So, I think creativity is really important. And, although he drives me crazy with his new ideas, I would never want him to stop thinking, right? Like, what is next? Or what if we could do this? And, sometimes it doesn't work. And other times, maybe it's going to be the next
But no, I honestly...
Bigger than the microchip.
Yeah, exactly.
But honestly, David, I would say entrepreneurs are creative people. I would say that creatives are not necessarily entrepreneurs. And I'm not saying
the opposite of what I said.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not saying that.
Well, what I like is, again, you know what this is? To me, it's a comment on the need for a partnership, for a
Right.
collaboration, for everybody's got their strengths, right?
Yeah, but I just want to explain that in the fact that I don't think all creatives are entrepreneurs, because I think it has a lot to do with personality type as well, not just how you think. I think you cannot be, and it's not to be cliche, but you cannot be afraid of risks, and you cannot be afraid of trying something or doing something that no one else would. And this isn't the first instant in my life that I've had that mentality or lived like that. And I know just from conversation with Cheryl that she has the same mentality. So I think that it's sort of like we said that you can be creative, but then wait for someone else to come along with the idea and just be happy with your situation. Not everyone has the luxury of being able to take a risk. Maybe you have a family to take care of or things like that. But I think that you have to just sort of stare it in the eyes and just take it on and have that mentality.
That was kind of the nice thing again about our partnership, is that I kind of have a security blanket, not having to take risk. I'm at a point in my life and career that I don't. That to me it wasn't a risk. It was an idea that I loved and was passionate about, and it gave Carl the opportunity to go full forward, into this. In fact, he left his job and just decided that this was, going to be the main focus, which I thought was the only way that we could make it work, right?
Yeah, sort of all or nothing.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a big question too. That's a podcast alone. It seems to me that's a chapter out of a book on entrepreneurship in a way, right? I mean, we're talking about it around a lot of these things. Creativity, you got to have the passion. You got to have the commitment. You got to be open. I love your comment about being open and how that leads to creativity, not necessarily the other way around.
Right.
Because I think a phrase I've used for years is this idea of open structure. You got to have some kind of foundation, but you still got to be wide open to those other aspects of discovery, whatever the heck they are. I feel a public talk brewing here. I feel an essay developing. But anyway, listen, thank you so much for joining us on Face to Face today. I really wish you guys well, and I love the fact that your company is based on laziness and eavesdropping. I think that's remarkable. I think that's an article for the Financial Post, or
Right.
when you guys are like rich beyond your wildest dreams, we'll be able to refer back to that. But really appreciate your time today. And
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks very much.